The Mysore bug bit me for the first time about 15 years ago, and I was just a child then of 11 or 12. There was a popular tele-serial those days called The Sword of Tipu Sultan, in which I was rather intrigued to see the portrayal, the comical portrayal of the Maharaja of Mysore. This went quite contrary to the popular belief that we residents of the old Mysore state had of the Maharaja as someone who's worship-worthy, whose photos are probably put next to the gods and goddesses in their homes. So this started off a child's curiosity into knowing the truth behind this falsehood. And in the course of the entire journey of over 15 years, I discovered that there is not a single book that traced this entire 600 odd years of the fascinating rule of the Wadiyars of Mysore. People really didn't seem to care much, like they don't do in the rest of India, about telling the story of their own past in a manner that interests, inspires, and also excites. It was very essential that somebody chronicled this history of one of India's longest reigning royal houses. It is rather sad that Mysore had a number of firsts to its credit, thanks to the benevolent rule of the Wadiyar Maharajas, but none of this has been chronicled in a book by any modern historian. Today, historical discourse in India consists mainly of the story of, say, the Mughals or the Rajputs or the Marathas, but the Wadiyars are something that we rarely speak about. Their contribution in terms of the social and economic development of the erstwhile princely state of Mysore, and most importantly, the growth of a cultural ethos of the state, which we still inherit and which has become a part of our lives today, is something we rarely, think or thank them for. And I think this book was an earnest attempt to fill that gap in the documentation of Indian history. The book traces the entire history starting from the genesis of the family in 1399 AD by two young aspirants, Yaduraya and Krishna, who came in from Dwarka in Gujarat as per popular tradition. And it revisits the ups and downs of the family through some of the greatest names of the dynasty like Raja Wadiyar, Ranadhira Kanthirava, Narasaraja Wadiyar, and Chikkadeva Raja Wadiyar, who took the kingdom to its zenith. Later, there was this depressing phase of spineless kings who capitulated to the machinations of their capricious dalbois or ministers, and the kingdom slipped into the hands of a man whom the monarch had bought a couple of years ago for a paltry sum. This led to the 40-year interregnum period of Hyder Ali and his chivalrous son Tipu Sultan. Of course, they were heroes of their times, and Mysore was among the first states of India to give a very spirited resistance to the colonial designs of the English East India Company. The Wadiyars were sidelined in those days, but it was thanks to the brave negotiations that were done by Rani Lakshman, who was held under house arrest by Hyder and Tipu, that restored the kingdom back to the Wadiyars. But unfortunately, the fruits of restoration didn't last too long, and after a chaotic reign of Mummadi Krishnaraja Wadiyar, the kingdom passed on to the commissioners. Now, this was a blessing in disguise because the state saw unprecedented progress during those 50 odd years of commissioners' rule. Under the rule of the later Wadiyars like Chamaraja Wadiyar and the Raja Rishi Nalvadi Krishnaraja Wadiyar and the last king Jayachamaraja Wadiyar, the princely state of Mysore was rightly hailed as one of the model states of India by the very founding fathers of the country. Mysore also became a seat of classical music, dance, folk arts, its own distinct style of painting, and all these aspects have been covered in this book in exhaustive detail. It is essential to tell the story of Mysore to people of India, to people of Karnataka, and even people outside, and this is an attempt to do just that.